groaning, opening his ruby red eyes, and then shaking his head. Void slowly looked from his left and then the right, seeing nothing but a white, empty, cosmic space. Clouds of stardust whizzed past his cyborg form, while rays of color slithered past his body like a pack of pythons. There was little sound to be heard, only the soft whistle of a passing breeze that caused him to ever so gently shiver.
Guys?
The spark asked as he glanced from both his sides, only to see that he was alone.
Jida? Joby!
Growing worried, Void spun himself around midair, realizing that he had been floating. However, nobody was to be seen before his eyes.
Povnu! Core!
With a bright and cosmic flash, Void's body suddenly spasmed and glitched out, flashing with several colors. Like a bugged video game character, Void stretched, shrunk, went monochrome to polychrome, all up till transforming, or more accurately, getting replaced by Jida.
What the hell?
She asked in terrified shock while looking down to her purple glowing arms.
What just... Ow!
Buzzing with broken color again, Jida glitched out like a broken TV screen before suddenly being replaced by Joby, who worriedly gasped and looked around herself.
What? Wait. What's going on?
She asked before glitching into Povnu, then T, Vivian, Tiger V, and then a flailing Chibi.
What the... Am I you? Am I me? This is so weird.
He exclaimed as he then turned into V and then Core.
What the hell is happening?
He questioned before returning back to a worried Void.
Tears of might. Hang on, everyone. If you can hear me, just relax.
He exclaimed as a cold drop of sweat poured down his snowball-shaped head.
Don't panic. Let's just take things easy. We'll figure this out.
Taking in deep breaths, Void felt as though he needed to swim through the air to get a breath of some fresh breeze. Yet there was nothing but the blinding light for all to see.
Travelers of the story's realm, welcome.
A loud voice suddenly boomed from behind Void, causing him to stop mid-drift. The tone of whoever just spoke was so loud and powerful that it caused his entire chest to rattle, his mechanical bones to shake, and his blood to quiver.
Hello?
The younger Novason nervously asked as he slowly turned himself around towards the sound. Staring off into the rear sector of the white abyss, Void can now see something large wavering its way through the cosmic clouds. For a long moment, it looked as though there had been a massive wall of some kind, a shadow that looked to possibly even linger above the tallest of mountains. With each second that passed, the more discernible its shape got, until suddenly, splitting off into three globs that emerged before the spark's eyes.
What the...
Void whispered, as the mysterious presences made themselves known. Leaning forwards with a head the size of a baseball stadium, the rider's large glowing-eyed face appeared to Void's sudden shocked disbelief.
Holy!
He screamed in fear, while then glitching out between everyone who had joined him. Emerging at the rider's sides came forth both the narrator and the designer, who also glared down upon the combined form of the team. Stopping upon Jida, she looked up at her gods with a deep pit in her stomach, as the voice of the rider spoke again.
Be not afraid, travelers. You are in an astral plane, a safe space before the next ring ahead.
He went on before the narrator started to speak up.
The great Beyonder's mystical projection gazes upon the frightened souls.
astonished upon their survival. It said in a feminine voice, describing the scene that had been playing out in real time.
Hi.
Jida nervously asked in a squeak, before glitching in the Joby. With no expressions, the rider's hands slowly rose up and gently scooped the combined group into his palm that was as big as a college parking lot. Looking up, Joby suddenly glitched in the Pofnu as the big being spoke again.
You mortals are well on your way to the great pillar of creation. However, if you wish to travel further, you must prove your soul strong enough to even gaze upon its glory.
The blue star-shaded god said, while the narrator began to speak with her intriguing words. The writer's projection monologues his rules down upon the kitsune's quivering fur, as she and the others wonder what he actually means. Glancing from the green titan and then to the silent orange one, Pofnu turned her gaze back up to the writer and gulped down a nervous glob of saliva.
What? Projection? What is this?
She asked before transforming in the tea. The Matterburg's beard sways within the solar air as he stares upon his makers, wondering, speculating, fearing what may come next. The narrator said as the writer continued on.
If you wish to traverse forwards, you must prove yourselves worthy. Once you have healed and strengthened your souls, only then will you be bright enough to carry on.
He exclaimed as the designer slowly began to approach upon the writer's left side. Hey, you can't just show up all Godzilla style and talk about some rite of passage. We just got chased down by a sand cloud. Actually, are you three even okay? You were all tangled up the last we saw you. T asked as he then turned into a nervous Vivian.
Prove your soul strong, our children. Only then shall you be presented passage to all of creation.
The writer boomed as the designer slowly raised his hand up with a glowing palm of fury. The scarred maiden gazes with dread upon the Beyonder's code of message. She wonders and fears as to what the blue beast is speaking of. The narrator boasted as the designer looked to press both his thumb and middle finger together.
Come out alive or succumb to your demons. Only then shall you walk forth into prosperity.
The writer finished as the designer suddenly snapped his fingers with a grand orange light. Looking as though the sun itself had exploded, Vivian covered her face as she glitched out between everyone else. As the god's snap light struck upon their bodies, everyone at last split back apart and went scattering about, all screaming and fading into the cloudy stars before it all just went to black. Journeys Ahead, Beyond Trilogy, Part 3, Chapter 4, Vivian. Written and narrated by T.S. ProArt. Opening her eyes to a bright light, Vivian coughed out a breath of frosted air before she suddenly sat upright. Groaning, she raised her clawed arm up and held her scarred pink head. With her left eye closed, she simply scratched behind her horns and then craned her sights upwards at the surrounding environment, seeing it to only be a massive wall of fog and snow. Guys? She asked, while glancing around with both her regular and blind eye. Guys? She questioned again, before fully standing to her feet. Pressing her boots down into a frosty, crunching layer of snow, Vivian brushed herself off before cupping both of her hands to her mouth. "Hey! Where are you guys?" She beckoned for her noticeably missing pack, as another voice called through the winds. "Void! Girls! It was Jida. Void's Jida. "Jida?" Vivian called back as she turned towards the sound.
Vivian? Is that you?
The musician responded as both women began to follow each other's voices. "Yeah, I can't see or hear the others. Are you— Oh, ah!" Without warning, the two opposite element wielders smashed into each other and fell upon their rears on the snow. The fog had been so thick that the glow of Jida's lavender hair was equivalent to the shine of a cigarette lighter, barely even a flame. "Ah, hey, are you okay?" The musician asked as she quickly stood and took Vivian by her normal mechanical hand. Looking down at this, the spark's eyes widened with her face contorting into an uneasy expression. Jida's hand was the same shape and size of her Jida's. It was uncanny. It was a skin surface that Vivian hadn't felt in years, bringing her back to so many memories that left her at a standstill. "Viv, you okay?" The cosmic angel asked, while fully pulling Vivian to her feet. Snapping out of her trance, Vivian quickly pulled her hand away and spoke with an urgent vocal tone. "Fine. I'm fine. Where are we?" She then asked, as the two of them began to glance around the clouded world. "Void!" Jida began to call out again, with her returning sense of dread. "Void! V! Old man!" Vivian howled, only for nobody to respond. Looking upwards, the two could see tons of tiny snowflakes that descended from a cloudy, distant, pink starry sky, rolling on by with its hundreds to thousands of worlds. What the hell were those big guys on about? Prove our souls strong enough? What the hell does that even mean? The spark exclaimed with a growing attitude, while Jida continued to call out to her family. "Yeah, you're all tied up. Not like that's important to bring up. Just send us into a frozen wasteland, why don't you? I swear to God, what is—" Vivian continued the whine, when the fog immediately lifted, causing the two women to turn and yelp in surprise. With the frosty clouds now gone, the two were able to see that they were now in a city, an empty one, that was in the middle of winter. "I think we're about to have that first question answered, Vivian." Jida sadly spoke in worry, as no one else was to be seen. They were on their own. Wait just a second. Vivian nervously spoke as she gazed out upon the environment that looked somewhat like a mixture between Aurora and Vode's Salvaheim architecture. I know this place. Taking a small step forwards onto a sidewalk beside an empty road, Vivian looked off in all directions with a softening voice that made Jida fall into a curious mood. "This is my home. From years ago," she revealed, while looking back at the purple glowing musician. "Your home?" she inquired, having not recognized any of the surroundings. Looking down and back forwards, Vivian could see a distant light looking to beckon her ahead. With a sense of nostalgia, she quietly began walking down the sidewalk. Taking notice, Jida held her breath and followed her husband's reflection, who looked to be in a state of wonder. Side by side, the two slowly traversed down the frosty-covered sidewalk, passing by all kinds of stores, shops, and skyscrapers, all looking coated in a light shade of frosty blue. With a shaken breath, Vivian continued to glance around with a mix of worry yet happiness in her steps. It was a little odd, Jida thought, as the spark, who had once been so stern, looked as though to be cracking within. Vivian? The musician asked with a hand raised out, only to be met by quiet words. I grew up here. The spark muttered, while brushing a hand through a frozen set of tree branches at her side. This city. It's been so long. I haven't seen this place since she... Vivian stopped herself with a bite to her tongue, while now slowing down in her steps. Since she... what? Jida asked, taking notice of Vivian's right fist slowly clenching in anger, or perhaps sadness. Why are they showing me this place? Crossing her arms and looking off to the left-hand side, Jida was unsure of what to say, what to bring up. Outside of a few little interactions, both her and Vivian didn't get a chance to really talk to each other. The spark had been distant, worrisome to Jida's and Tiger's presence. Even here, it was as though the shorter reflection didn't even want to look back. Jida couldn't really blame her, though. She had pieced enough together that something terrible had happened to both Vivian as well as her deceased Jida. She was more than likely a burdening spirit in Vivian's presence, even if she was a different person at heart. Looking to her right, Jida set her sights upon a store window's reflection. Ice and fog looked to cloud the glass up, making it seem like a frozen tundra. However, when looking at herself, the musician suddenly gasped out as to what she saw, causing Vivian to look as well. Hey, what are you... What? She quietly mumbled as to what they were now seeing. Walking and skipping within the glass's reflection was the both of them, but not exactly. With their hands interlocked, a young Vivian and her Jida pranced on by with an echoing cry of laughter. The little Vivian was more vibrant in color. Both eyes were green, no scars, no clawed arm. Just an innocent little girl with a baggy pink shirt, dark pants, and matching shoulder sphere colored shoes. Her Jida looked identical in shape to when Void's Jida was a kid. However, she had a bund up set of icy blue hair, light purple skin, beautiful wintry eyes, and a white and blue flowered dress that blew elegantly within the wind. This reflection wasn't just a window. It was a viewing way into the past. Vivian's past. Silently, the spark watched as the little reflections danced off down their path, leaving her lip quivering and eyes squinting. By the stars. Did you two know each other since you were... kids? Jida asked, as she gently approached a now arm-crossing, shivering Vivian, who started to slowly speak again. Yes. I was a little girl. My world was destroyed by something. Me and my mother, Celeste, we fled the ruins and came to this city, where I met her. Vivian revealed as the city slowly shifted into a state of buildings closing in at both their sides, all with windows displaying tons of memories to the spark's shock, unease, but slight glee. Images of the two girls appeared, them playing on a swing set, spending time at a beach, enjoying birthday parties, tons of memories that slowly began to show them getting older and older. We were practically tied to each other. Promised to never let each other behind. Vivian said with the tiniest of voice cracks, while keeping her head down, not wanting to really look at what the beyond was presenting to her. In stunned awe, Jida watched as the memories went from younger years to teen years, then going through high school, graduation, and then adventuring. As adults, they looked no different than how Void and Jida had been for the last 10 years. Adventurous, helping hands. It was so odd to see Vivian so lively, sporadic, a goofball in some of the memories. A stark contrast as to who she had been now. We promised. The spark said again, as her breathing began to grow heavy. Vivian. Jada asked, as they both reached the light and entered a new, windowless area, one that Vivian knew all too well. It was Central Park, the way it had been when her and Jada tried confessing. Looking up with a shaken breath, the spark suddenly flinched as Jada placed a warm hand to her shoulders, quivering build. Whirling her head, she met the musician's lavender eyes that held the look of deep compassion within. Reaching out, Jada gently wiped the tiniest of tears from Vivian's stare, causing her to shuffle back in response. What do you want? Raising her hands up, Jada kept a calm tone and took a tiny step forwards, realizing that Vivian was in the middle of a tiny freakout. Hey, breathe. Just breathe. I think I may be understanding what's happening here. The musician said as she carefully approached a slow-breathing Vivian. What? What's going on then? Why is it just showing me crap? Why aren't any of your memories showing up? Vivian nervously questioned as Jada had reached out her hands and held them on the Vivian's, causing her to sharply inhale. Look at me. All eyes on me. Jada quietly spoke, leaving Vivian to lock her working eye upon her. Those Beyonders said something about healing our souls, right? To pass on through? I think this is some kind of trial about you, Vivian. And considering that I'm the only one here, perhaps I'm the one to help you. Jada speculated as Vivian gazed upon her with a cold sweat. I can sense something within you. It's broken, scared, hurt. Maybe if you talk to me, Jada asked, causing Vivian to shake her hands off. No, piss off. That can't be what this is. Some kind of BS therapy session. There's no way. The spark barked, leaving Jada to wince with worry. Vivian, I'm fairly certain this is exactly what this is. You haven't told anyone about what happened. I can sense that. Please, can you... Jada babbled as Vivian's horns flared with a frosted glow. No, I'm not talking about this. This has to be something else. The spark hacked out with a stuttering tone as Jada reapproached. Viv, she asked, causing the spark to get angrier. No, this is my personal shit. My choice. We're not talking about this. She boasted as Jada gently held her shoulders. Vivian, it's okay. You can talk to me. The musician assured as the winter-embedded void tried to push her off. Don't touch me! She snapped, causing Jada's eyes to furrow. Viv, can you please just... She asked, causing Vivian's eyes to flare in a pink-white haze. I couldn't save her, damn it! Is that what you wanted to hear? She boasted, in turn, causing the world around her to shatter apart like ice. Suddenly shouting in shock, the two variants of love plummeted downwards into a dark abyss, completely taken aback as to what was now happening. Groaning in pain, and then slowly sitting upright from their fall, Vivian and Jada found themselves within a black void, one where only they were visible within. What happened? Jada asked as the two women slowly stood to their feet. There was absolutely nothing. No sound, wind, not even a temperature. It was eerie, oddly threatening, until the feeling of fear became a landslide of dread. Jolting upright to an echoing cackle, Jada summoned out two of her burning daggers from the roofs of her hands and glanced around wildly to her surroundings. What was that? She continued to speak, while Vivian just looked forwards with enlarged and shaken eyes, now being frozen like a popsicle. "Vivian?" Jida called, as the echo laugh repeatedly bounced within the spark's head. For Jida, it was merely a scary cackle. But for Vivian, it was something else. Something familiar. Something she had wished not to remember. "Vivian, are you okay?" Jida asked again, getting the spark to turn with genuine fear in her eyes. "We gotta get out of here," she exclaimed, causing Jida to tilt her head in a cold sweat. "What?" the musician inquired while gesturing to the dark void around them. "It doesn't matter. We just gotta go," Vivian called in a scared tone that in turn made Jida even more panicked. "Vivian, there's no..." Before Jida could even say a third word, a large black glove with wrist bells emerged from the darkness behind her, extending out with a dirty black and white patterned arm. This massive mitt grabbed Jida without so much as a warning, before yanking her back into the darkness. She didn't even have the chance to scream. "No! Oh God, no!" Vivian howled in horror as she broke free from her fearful dread and ran after her love's reflection. "No! No, 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 no!" She cried in a hard sprint, as memories from her past began to rise like a tidal wave. Awful memories that led her to where she was today. "Let her go! Let her go, damn it!" Vivian continued to bellow before suddenly being halted by a large spotlight from the abyss above. Gasping and falling onto her hands and knees, Vivian swung her head up and winced to the bright light, while a deep and invisible shadowed force started to talk.
Well, well, well. Look who it is. The one who is but a broken mirror in the realm of life. It's so good to see you again, Cher.
Getting back to her feet, Vivian's breathing began to intensify to a terrible level. Her heart raced as her head pounded with pain as the voice from her past clawed itself into her ear holes. "Where is she? Where is she, you bastard?" Vivian demanded as she raided her frostbiter to life.
Where is she? Well, should you say, where is you? Or something like that. Where did the years go?
Snarling with chattering teeth, Vivian began to turn in circles, aiming her frostbiter at all angles, while the darkness and light above ceased to evade her vision. "It's not real. It's not real. It's an illusion. It's gotta be an illusion." Whispering in a fearful breath, Vivian closed her eyes and shook her head as flashes of the past began to fire up like bullet rounds. Images of a tall, black and white jester-like theater figure appeared and disappeared. A monster that ruined everything. A force that changed her life forever.
Oh, poor, poor girl. I hate to inform you that this is no illusion.
The voice said as Jida called out from the darkened void. "Hey! Let go of me! I can't see! What are you?" She whined, sparking Vivian to open her eyes again. "Jida!" she called, however, now found herself to be in a maze of mirrors. Gasping and stumbling back, the spark found herself in its dimly lit environment while being forced to look at herself, her scarred face, her blinded eye. No, not this again. Anything but this again!" she wearily mumbled as Jida spoke up from the abyss. "Vivian! What's happening? What's that?" Whirling her head, the pink spark locked her eyes with the purple variant of her love, who was reflecting off several mirrors, creating the image of the true one she had lost many years ago. Swinging forwards, Jida summoned rounds of fire to her fists, trying to break out of the mirror. She then tried the warp, but to no avail. She was trapped. He... Vivian tried to speak, as the mirrors all began to spin and flip, leaving Jida to shout and Vivian to stumble on her rear.
Isn't it obvious? I'm the devil that plagues everyone's minds.
The voice said, as a massive, lanky, and shadowy figure landed behind Vivian, having dropped out of the abyss above. Whirling her head, all Vivian could see was a left red eye and a right purple eye, the same type that was within Froststarter, as well as the Memory Storm.
I am the pain that comes with the term bottling it all up.
He said before swinging both a right, bundled up fist, black glove down, alongside a left, right one. Smashing the ground on either side of Vivian, the spark was suddenly sent flying back and crashing into a new environment, another that she recognized. Sliding back in a gasping panic, Vivian opened her eyes to see that she had now entered a breakfast diner, one that looked to have been moving on outside of her own reach. The people within went about their business, with no mind to the spark. It was as though she hadn't even been there. Yellow buttered colored walls went up and down. A smell of cooking eggs and bacon hugged Vivian's senses, while a beautiful sunshine cast itself in through a side window. Walking up from behind Vivian, one of the diner's waitresses suddenly phased through her, making the spark realize that she was like a ghost, and no one could see. I'm not sure about this one, Vivi. A giant dark magic circus freak terrorizing the cosmos? How would we even go about confronting a force like that? Perking up with a chill, Vivian felt a new wave of both fear and unease creep into her heart. That voice. That wasn't Void's Jida. That was her Jida. Oh, relax, babe. We've been through so much worse. It's not like Psychus is going to try and bite your throat out again. Slowly turning around to the sound of her own voice, Vivian locked her eyes upon an old memory. One that was truly the last real good one she had held dear. But one that would ultimately lead into a never-ending spiral of pain. Are you sure? Or are you going to keep balancing that greasy sausage on your nose? Face? Vivian's Jida asked, as a younger, more vibrant, and happy version of herself sat at the other end of the booth, balancing a sausage roll upright in where her nose would have been. Positive. You already know how it goes. When we're together, we'll always prevail. The past Vivian said, before flipping the sausage off her face and catching it in her mouth with one singular gulp. You're such a dork, Vivi. The frosty Jida said, as she adjusted a pair of white glasses that rested atop her face. Says the nerd who memorized all the potion recipes from your mining and crafting game, whatever it is. Past Vivian retorted, causing the couple to chuckle. With a look of sorrow present, Vivian watched as her past self and her love leaned in and gave each other a gentle kiss, causing instant tears to swell. Taking a step forwards, the current Vivian shakily reached her right hand out towards her Jida's face, desperate to caress her smooth skin once again, to feel the chill of her true love. Yet, she only phased through, being forced to watch as the past carried on.
If only you haven't been so cocky. Now look where we are, Cher.
With a sudden and jerking flash, Vivian was launched backwards into yet another memory-induced environment. This one of a shattering world, one that was exploding apart with bright neon blue and purple fountains and shattering starry skies above. Looking down at herself, the spark internally gasped upon realizing she had full sight once more. Her body was back to normal. She was vibrant once again, and all the healthier. However, she wasn't in control. With her arms outstretched, Vivian found herself reaching into a dark mirror-looking portal, trying to drag an evil being back out to finish a battle from their fleeing stature. The fight had been lost, she recalled. The monster had won, enacted a ritual that had begun to erase an entire world. Both her and Jida fought hard, but in the end, failed for the very first time.
Jida! Vivian! You guys gotta get out of there! This Jester thing is already won! The world's breaking apart!
A version of knock called through Vivian's arm as she continued to try and pull the monster back, only managing to get a bell-tipped elf-looking shoe out instead. Vivian! Help me! Her Jida called as the world from behind tore itself apart at a violent rate. I can't move! My legs are broken! Jida cried out as she laid severely injured upon the ground. Hang on, Freckles! I almost have him! Vivian shouted back with more focus to her enemy than her lover, determined to make him pay for what had been done. Vivian! Vivian! Jida screamed as a chunk of reality shattered away upon her legs, causing them to suddenly disintegrate into nothing, erased from time and space itself. I almost have him! Don't worry! Vivian bellowed, oblivious to what was happening to her love. My legs! My legs are gone! Jida sobbed out, in turn, getting Vivian to finally turn her head. Gasping in immediate despair, she immediately realized the gravity of the situation, but knew that if she let the monster get away, it would spell doom for several other realities. However, the sobbing screams of Jida were enough to make her let the jester go. As she did, the ground beneath Jida's battered form instantly caved away, resulting in her to fall into an abyss of fizzling light. Screaming out, Vivian lunged forwards and slid across the dark dirt grounds, and reached out with her left arm, catching Jida by her frost-embedded necklace. Vivian, please! She cried as her entire torso began to get absorbed into the burning light. Hang on, baby! I got you! Ah! Without warning, an electrical strand of erasing matter arose and lashed itself around Vivian's left arm as well as the side of her face, burning it and immediately blinding her left eye. The pink spark bellowed, while trying to fight against the power of the dissolving reality. However, as she pulled, Jida was continuously yanked back down as more and more of her body was eradicated within the light. Vivian! Don't let me go! Please don't let me go! The wintry blue beauty cried in fear as her reaching arms faded away. I won't! I won't let you go! Vivian assured with spilling tears, as all that remained of her Jida was just an upper torso and head. Please! Please! She begged, as Vivian released a tearful scream. As if on devastating cue, the sheer force of weight suddenly snapped Jida's necklace away, leaving the last thing for Vivian to see being the love of her life getting erased before her very eyes as she faded from sight. As this happened, Vivian was suddenly launched backwards from a white, stardust explosion that sent her sprawling backwards and entering back into the Beyond's Trial of Passage, where she skid across the floor and back into her current state, clutching the very necklace close to her heart. Now huddled into a ball on her hands and knees, Vivian silently sobbed and punched the floor as voices began to call from the darkness.
You could have saved her. You let my sister die. I told you to get out of there.
My daughter. Where's my daughter?
Could you? How could you? You aren't welcome here anymore. Not anymore. Get out of here, hon. She's dead because of you.
Wincing in sorrow, Vivian felt her tears spill from her eyes and hit the floor with echoing splats that added on to the shattered soul's current state. I couldn't save her. I couldn't save her. She's gone because of me. The world hates me. It's all my fault. All my fault. She wept while reaching up and gripping her head. I was too hot-headed. Is that what you want me to say? That I messed up? Got her killed because I was too focused on the wrong thing? Why make me suffer? Why? Why? Vivian called in a depressed tone as she looked at her reflection within the necklace around her neck. Why? She now said in a quiet tone, as a voice suddenly called from the shadows. Vivian. Shooting up and turning her head, the spark glared backwards to see Void's Jida still trapped in a mirror that dangled above her head. Yet, they had both returned to a darkness that never seemed to end. I couldn't save her. I couldn't save you. That monster, Vivian said with clenched fists, while shutting her eyes again. I screwed up. I screwed everything up. She whispered as Jida pressed her hands against the glass. No, you made a mistake. Scratch that. You did what you thought was right in the moment. She said, feeling a wave of Void's lessons rushing deep through her soul. No, I got her killed. She's dead because I disregarded her. Please. Vivian spat back as she winced with now glowing pink eyes. You didn't know what was happening. This all occurred because you were trying to save lives. Vivian, you can't blame yourself. Jada continued to speak as she locked her eyes with her husband's reflection. As she did this, a slight form of light began to emanate above their heads, a heavenly shade of peace that made Jada realize what this was all about. Viv, you gotta forgive yourself for what happened. It wasn't your fault. Closing her wet eyes and turning away, Vivian clawed at the ground with an angering face before speaking aloud. Forgive myself? For letting her die over my brash nature? That's impossible! The spark set with self-hatred to Jida's dismay as that voice called out again.
True, you let her die. You could have saved her. But what did you do?
The voice asked as his large, lanky body dropped from above and landed in front of Vivian, transforming their environment into a large, dark purple and black circus arena. Leaping back with a shout, Vivian gazed upon the jester that ruined her life, or rather, the Beyonder's reflection of him. He was lanky, tall, with long, waving, boneless arms and legs that consisted of a white and black patch pattern. His head was merely a happy expression theater mask, with diamond black shapes floating above it. The left side of the mask was cracked, while the right was smooth and clean. He had a fluffy but dirty neck collar that was connected by bell-dangling tassels that were mimicked around his waist. 3 buttons lined his scratched-up patterned chest, while his limbs continued to wriggle and elegantly wave up and down. Moving like an awkward puppet on strings, the illusion of the cosmic monster got on all fours and hacked out a set of words that made the circus buzz to life with flashing lights, moving walls and floors.
And because of you, you can't heal your soul. So the judgment is death. Unworthy of the pillar's grace.
Leaping back, the big jester summoned a massive purple bouncy ball that he immediately bounced on, to both Vivian's and Jida's horrors.
Stage is set for the final act. Prepare yourselves and make your last breaths an encore.
With a sideward shift, the floor beneath Vivian's feet began to spin towards the right as the entire circus began revolving around the jester. With a cackle, he bounced up and down on his ball before performing a single-armed handstand. Glaring upon the spark with his red and purple eyes, the jaw to his mask suddenly elongated like a piece of rubber, in turn making enough space to shoot out condensed balls of purple plasma. Gasping and leaping out of the way, Vivian dodged and evaded these attacks, which exploded into confetti upon impact, all while continuing to spill her tears. No! Don't listen to him, Vivian! It wasn't your fault! You hear me? Jada roared while punching the mirror she had been stuck within, while the fight below raged on. It was my fault! I had every chance to save her, but I didn't. She could still be alive if I hadn't been so stubborn. Vivian bellowed in sorrow as the jester bounced forwards off his ball and landed before the frosty spark.
That's correct, little girl. If you hadn't been so focused upon me, perhaps you two would have lived happily ever after.
The demon clown cackled before reaching into his mouth and pulling out a comically sized mallet with the words "Wallop" on its flat nose. Swinging down, the demon clown clashed his hammer into the ground, sending Vivian flying back and rolling across the rotating floor. Grunting and being tossed aside by the gears below her feet, Vivian struggled to get up while the massive jester suddenly began the front flip towards her. Vivian, you did what you had to do. You could have known. It was out of your control. Jida exclaimed as the demon suddenly kicked Vivian in the face, causing her to fall back in pain. You can't blame yourself for unintentionally causing her death. It was him, not you. The musician continued to reason as Vivian aimed her frostbiter and shot it at her enemy that coiled around like a spring. It was! What do you know about losing a loved one? To never see them again? Vivian asked as the jester grabbed her by the throat and threw her to the side. As she went flying, he summoned several mirrors to rise that Vivian immediately shattered through. Wincing from the fight that Vivian looked to intentionally be losing, Jaida's face furrowed down into a sad state as she took in the reflection's words. Looking down, she eyed the necklace that her father had given to her and prepared to bring up a wave of memories to try and help her friend. I know more than you could think, Vivian. I got my whole family killed. Years ago, there was to be a meteor shower above my city. I begged them to take me to see it, only for the asteroids to crash closer than expected. It killed them. Jaida revealed to Vivian's weakened surprise as she was tossed aside again. For years I blamed myself, hated myself. I know what you're feeling, Vivian, but I also know that in the end, I couldn't blame myself. Jaida exclaimed while pressing both of her hands on the glass. Void helped me through the guilt. My new family lifted me out of the darkness. Please, just listen to me. Jaida pleaded, but the monster spoke up, interrupting her.
You're just a scared little girl. You are nothing but a failure. Failure, failure, failure.
He cackled while swinging his mallet down the Vivian's guarding hands. Catching it, the spark fought against the jester's strength, but managed to talk back minus it all. I've tried to forgive myself, but everyone I once thought I knew blames me for what happened. They casted me away, left me on my own. I let you die. Doesn't that bother you? Why are you trying to help me? Vivian asked before getting smacked away again. Because I can see past the cracks. You aren't a failure. You just had a rough bump in the road like all of us. I know our death affected you and those who once took care of you, but they had no right in taking it out on you. You tried to save her. Don't you realize that? You tried. To these loud words, the jester suddenly looked to lag backwards and glitch, as though it had reacted to the audible cries from the musician. Blinking with this thought, Vivian held her tongue while standing back to her feet. I failed, she said, causing the demon to return to its normal, motioning pace. You did your best. You tried, Vivian. If she were still around, I'm sure she would have been able to recognize that. Jaida expressed, causing the large beast to falter again. I've been reckless, rude to you all. Vivian began, again with a dodge, as the large jester began to swing his arms wildly at all sides. All I've done these past few days was be a stern-faced asshole, and yet you still want to help me. I don't understand. Vivian asked with another evasive spin, as the jester smashed his mallet upon her sides. You were the one who decided to help us. You came here with the intent to help save our son. If that doesn't scream that you have a good heart, then I don't know what does. Jaida exclaimed as Vivian launched herself up and over the jester with a frosted blast. I hoped that if I helped, that it would redeem me for my inactions. The pain in your husband's eyes. I didn't want him to end up like me. You, all of you, I don't deserve this kind of empathy. Vivian sadly said with a breaking heart as tears continued to spill from her face. You deserve to rest, Vivian. You deserve to move on, to be happy again. That can only happen if you learn to forgive yourself. Jaida called as Vivian caught the punching fist of the demon, who continued to laugh maniacally. We can give you a new home. Me and Void, we can give you a place to be loved. A group of people that can cherish you. A world where you can be happy again. We can help you. Jaida tried to reason, as Vivian and the jester continued to push back against each other's power. You don't have to be alone anymore. You don't have to face this by yourself. All of us. We will be there for you. Only if you allow us inside. Closing her eyes while losing strength, Vivian began to quietly sob as a mixture of emotions began to swell into her heart. Ever since the incident, she hadn't heard words such as this. It was numbing, terrifying. After years of ridicule, hatred, and self-loathing, it was such an intense aura to hear, let alone from a variant of her deceased beloved. she wept as the light above her head began to glow bright once again. With a gentle smile growing on her face, Jida leaned her forehead against the glass and said one last thing, something she hoped would mend the wound for the time being. I know she can't say it, but I can. I love you, Vivian, and I forgive you. As these last few words reached Vivian's heart, something within her soul began to resonate. Opening her eyes with bright pink eyes, she glared upon the demon's mask that was less than an inch away from her face. I forgive you. It was only 3 words, 3 little words that felt like the largest of hugs. I forgive you, she now muttered to herself as a new wave of strength began to engulf her entire being. Scowling upon the illusion, Vivian charged her horns up with a bright pink glow that hummed louder than ever before. As snowflakes began to trickle off her frostbitten shapes, Vivian scowled with the mightiest of teeth and unleashed a powerful shout, one of pent-up hatred, one of sorrow, pain, and so much more. With a bright pink light, the entire circus was blown away into a wintry eruption of life, along with the jester, who cackled out one last time before he turned to ice and was blown away within seconds, as Vivian, at last, felt something she had needed for a long, long time. Love. Slowly falling to her hands and knees, Vivian gently gasped out breaths of pent-up emotion, thoughts and fears that had been bottled within for oh so long. The color from her glowing eyes faded, while her tears continued to spill. As this occurred, the light above arose into a beautiful golden haze, as a warm spring breeze engulfed the realm she had been trapped within. Fading away, the mirror around Jida dissolved in the energy, while it gently levitated back to the ground. At landfall, Jida hopped out of its tight space and quickly ran to Vivian's side. As her shoes plopped upon melting snow, the purple-haired musician slid to a pitcher stop and embraced Vivian upon the ground. Hey, you alright? She asked as the spark kept her head low. Shaking her head with tense eyes, Vivian immediately pressed herself into Jida's side, clinging onto her with a sense of gratitude. Without saying a word, Jida warmed herself up and hugged Vivian back, holding her close and rubbing her head. It's okay. It's gonna be okay, she said, as origami glass butterflies gently fluttered about them, while birds quietly sang from afar. I'm here. I have you, the musician continued to say as Vivian slowly craned her gaze upwards. Locking eyes, Jida could see a mixture of both sorrow and release. Vivian couldn't speak at that moment. All she could feel and express was a sense of gratitude towards her love's reflection. Although she wasn't her Jida, and would never be, it was clear that a form of love was there as before, the love of a friend. Jida, Vivian spoke, as something began to change upon her body. Vivian's face had suddenly begun to self-heal. Fading back to normal skin, Vivian's scar vanished as her blind eye illuminated back to life in a turquoise shine. Her low, saturated colors had even returned to a more vibrant state, stunning the both of them. Vivian, your face! Jida exclaimed in shock, as the spark now looked around with a full vision in absolute disbelief. What? How is this? She asked, as a golden passageway of light suddenly appeared in a door shape, being accompanied by a booming voice from within.
Well done, mortal. You have begun the process of healing your soul. You both are granted not just passage, but a plentiful revival in your well-being.
It was the writer, speaking from the door before their eyes. Looking at herself, Jida found that the slight bruises and scratches from her fall had healed over, while Vivian stared at the door in awe, letting the golden light from its form gently give her peace. I never wanted to talk about it. I thought you would all hate me if I told you the truth, Vivian said as Jida continued to hold her close. That's not who we are. We forgive and learn, not slander and discard. The musician replied with a loving purple glow that left Vivian feeling safe for the first time in a long time. Thank you, she whispered as the two of them just rested in place. Would it be okay if we rested here for some time? The spark then asked as more silent, relieved tears spilled down her face. Of course, Viv. Of course. Jida quietly answered as the two rested within the heaven's golden and peaceful light.